Hello everyone, welcome to our session on William Wordsworth. So, what do you remember about William Wordsworth? When you hear the name William Wordsworth, what work do you remember? What work will come into your mind suddenly? Yes, lyrical ballads. So, it is the main work of him. Come, let's go and see more information about him. Lyrical ballads published by him and his friend Coleridge in 1798. So Coleridge was published. We know that both Wordsworth and Coleridge had written the work Lyrical Ballads, and it was published in 1798. And then the preface to the second edition of the Lyrical Ballads, it was published in 1800. And then Wordsworth's subject is poetic diction and his view of poetry, which from the original enunciation in the preface of 1800 undergo considerable modifications in the others. So the question of poetic diction or the language fit for poetry, which chiefly compelled Wordsworth to write his preface. It had also engaged the attention of the neoclassical and earlier writers. Okay, so writers followed their own bent, that is their own rules and restrictions. Okay, Cicero so divided style into three categories: the low, the middle, and the high. So the low, it was used to prove, and then the middle, so they used it to please, and then high or lofty, so they used it to move. So although the categorization originally applied to oratory, it proved no less useful in distinguishing the kinds of poetry by their style. So the elegiac people used the low style, the pastoral used the middle, and the epic used the lofty. So the 18th century reduced these three categories. So they when 18th century began, so the three categories was reduced to two, that is the low and the lofty. So they rejected low words and phrases as unfit for poetic purpose, so which being in everyday use became too familiar to the ear, so they all lost all their power to impress. There was another variety of words which was not covered by any of these, which Dr. Johnson found unfit for poetic use, that is the technical ones, which though uncommon and high, they are too much be intelligible, so it is not fit for poetic purpose. So this was said by Dr. Johnson. Okay, and then poetry drifted away from natural expression altogether. Okay, because um, we need to we will write poetry with the mind that we need to impress the reader. So when the reader read the poem, they should be impressed by that poem. So in that mind, we will move away from the natural expression. So we will apply some kind of artificiality. Okay, and then publication of the second edition of the Lyrical Ballads. So the second edition of the Lyrical Ballads was published in 1800. And then the language of poetry cannot materially differ materially from that of prose. So he says that the it is not a differentiate. That is the language of poetry. It is not materially differed. That is that not only the language of large portion of every good poem, even of the most elevated character, must necessarily, except with reference to the meter, in no respect differ from that of good prose. But likewise, that some of the most interesting parts of the best poems will be found to be strictly the language of prose, when prose is well written. So, as an instance, we can say Gray's sonnet, that is on the death of Richard West. So, which in spite of that poet's insistence on the difference between the language of poetry and prose, it is hardly different from that they would be a prose such as the concluding part. So Wordsworth replies that he is only recommending a selection of the language really spoken by men, and that this selection, wherever it was made with true taste and feeling, will itself form a distinction at greatest, at a greater than would it be first imagined. Just he's saying the selection. So Wordsworth's original object and the distinction lies not only in meter but also in the choice of words and phrases. So which in the case of poetry must be made with true taste and feeling. And then his poetic practice does the same tale repeat. So his greatest poems, we can say the greatest poems of him like um, Tinchan Abbey, the Immortality Ode, the Solitary Reaper. I hope we have come across this poem, the Solitary Reaper. It was such a beautiful work. Okay, and then spontaneous overflow of powerful feeling. Yeah, this was the famous definition given by Wordsworth. Okay, so spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. He defined poetry as like this. But if it is only this, that it comes to be clothed in selection of language really used by men. So if it is written in the language, real language used by men, then only it will be considered as a good poetry. And then uh, poetry, final product of the unforced overflow of powerful feelings. So for it is only by some such interpretation that these two opposed statements can be reconciled. So reconsidered. So that is the second statement is the more considered one, because it explains his meaning more truly and it is plainly enough. So for his own great poems were composed in the way he sets forth. So a moving sight, say the solitary reaper or the daffodils, was seen during a walk, stored in the memory and recalled in moments of calm contemplation to be bodied forth into a poem. So in this process, the emotion originally aroused by the sight was recreated in contemplation as nearly as possible till it overpowered the mind completely. So the first stage is the poetic process, that is the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. The second stage is the recollection in tranquility. Okay, and the last stage is the expression in poetry. So what is the expression in that poetry? So that by spontaneity in poetry, words would not only did not imply a complete rejection of workmanship or artlessness, is borne out by only by his own practice. So only by his own practice. So for he ever compared his poems with the greatest care, not trusting his first expression, which he often found desirable. So Wordsworth is not so revolutionary in his um, in his concept. So he was not that much revolutionary. So poet is possessed of a great power to feel and to express his feelings. So the poet has possess a great power in order to feel. So he need to feel in if he need to express something, first of all he need to feel. So he possess the great power to feel and also to express those feelings through his poetry. Okay, and then poetry is the pursuit of truth, of man's knowledge of himself and the world around him. So his preface wean the reader away from the old mode writing and to accustom him to his own. So what his preface did, it moved the reader away from the old. So old mode of writing was stopped and it was not concentrated much, and he made others to accustom to his own style of writing. Okay, so poetry is the pursuit of truth. Okay, and then he says it that is Wordsworth in a famous passage concerning his own poems seems to echo the very sentiments of Plato. So they will cooperate with the big bending tendencies in human nature and society, and will in their degree be efficacious in making men wiser, better and happier. So in the preface, these bending tendencies are defined as relationship and love, so which it is a great function of poetry to promote, but they ought to be induced through a purgation of feelings rather than through a mere appeal to the intellect or good sense. So that is what distinguishes Wordsworth's concept of teaching from that of his neoclassical predecessors. So this is the thing which differentiates Wordsworth from all the neoclassical predecessors. Okay, so these are all the things which you should remember when you talk about Wordsworth. Okay, I hope you are all clear of William Wordsworth, who had written the lyrical ballads. If you have any doubt, you can post it in the comment box. It will be clarified in the next video. So thank you for watching.